Welcome back to Mondays Are a Mother. I'm your host, Kaylin, and if you're new here, hey, great to have you. Thanks for listening. I am super excited to be back. In minutes of releasing the first one, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, listening. Nice. Um, Within my first few minutes, you guys also had really awesome questions that I am super excited to get into, catch up with you, and check in, see how we're doing. But first, before I get too into this episode, I want to say that there is a slight, well, not a slight, there is a trigger warning. We are going to talk about addiction, themes with violence and sexual misconduct, and listener discretion is advised. If this is triggering to you, I do want to encourage you to take some time for your mental health. We totally get it, and we'll see you at the next episode. Now, getting that out of the way, this is going to be a slightly heavier episode because you guys had a lot of questions, and I pulled the top three because I wanted to get not as many details out, but I wanted to share with you all what you have like on your mind. I guess without hiding the like truth behind it because it was a heavy time for me, and if me sharing my story can help some have some encouragement or even can learn from my decisions. I won't call them mistakes because really like I I do believe that of course I've made some poor decisions or I've done some things that were not 100% right. However, I learned from them, I grew from them, I changed from that, and I think that that's like the beauty in it. Of course, like we all fall short, but that's just my take on it. So, to learn from my decisions, to learn from maybe a suggestive different path for other listeners, and possibly giving you an opportunity to share your story and create some healing too. Um, Whew, now that I got all that out of the way, gosh, that was so long winded. Also, my voice, I better not be coming down with a cold, I swear. I have been not sick. If you are a mom or are around kids, work in the public with just children in general, or whatever your situation is, and if you have to encounter kids, you're gonna get sick. I don't know what it is. It's like they mutate these nasty germs, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like I have things to do. Like I have a list, and I can't be sniffling the whole time. Like I'll probably cry anyway, so I don't want to all over the place. I don't even know what that sound was. All right, so the first question that I found was a big one was what happened with David and or who's David. Definitely going into that with you guys today. Also, a few of you have asked like what happened with Daniel. Are we still together? Spoiler alert, we're not together. What we're up to, I guess. We're around each other, and it's not like we have a kid or something, I don't know, but I'll tell you more about that. And also, where did the mystery man go? What happened? And my very first podcast, Do Without a Clue, and it was kind of fun, kind of cute. I started dating and didn't want to publicly put him in a position to be, I don't really know what the word is, but I was still going through the divorce for so long, or just getting it finalized, really. Not that we were in the same house, we weren't, but I didn't think it was fair to be public when I still had this going on. And so we called him Mystery Man. So that way I could share the struggles of dating during a divorce or dating in that dynamic without putting him in a poor position. And a lot of you wanted to know, like, why did that or what happened. So there's the T for why he was called Mystery Man. But also, I thought with all the questions that you guys had, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to dive into what I like to call the X Files. So I thought that was so funny. Like I couldn't help myself. But so I guess we will start with David. David and I met when I was freshly 16. I was coaching a like a community cheer league cheer team. It was so fun. I was about ending my sophomore year, going into my junior year, and scheduling to get my braces off. If you know, during the early 2000s, the blonde streak was it. That was Jersey Shore time. I remember seeing like all the girls having the blonde streak. I fried that portion of my hair for like years, and God, my poor aunt having to cut that straw piece over and over again. So with that, my style was not the cutest until about my junior year when I got my hair fixed. I stopped the whole skunk streak and got my braces off. That was when David noticed me. um, and to be transparent, in my childhood, I was dealing with a lot of rejection. I struggled with truth telling because, and this is rooted from therapy, so I want to express that I do not fault anyone for this. I have done a lot of healing, a lot of growing, and I'm very proud of where I am today. So here we go. I was touched by a family member, and that family member had encouraged me to stay silent. And when I would go to tell, I would then like distract myself, would not think of what to say, and further would make up stories because I would like start to talk about it, and then so I would come up with wild tales in which my it damaged my like childhood reputation, as weird as that sounded. Made bonds hard to form, and additionally did not help with the fact that I had ADD, ADHD. I don't want this to sound super pick me, and I know that it will, and I know that it will be relatable to others, but having the opportunity to be like chosen and welcome into a family with open arms and them hold like no resentment for you for actions that you had when you were 7, 8, 9, it felt nice. And so when we met and I was picked, I was chosen by this family, you know, we started dating. It was a sense of validation and community that like I really, really needed. Also, my mom had passed away when I was 7 years old in a car accident, so I was really longing for a deep like sense of connection that was really hard for me to obtain in my household because my grandmother was older than me, duh, and then my great grandmother, those two were the women that were around, and they didn't really want to be around each other. And so it was kind of like a quiet household. They were raised in the 20s and 40s. So the level of communication was different, the knowledge was different, and having to adjust from that to the real world, in a sense, was difficult. It was a challenge to understand normalcy when I would get to like sneak and watch reality TV and like see that that behavior was accepted by society and try to imitate that and mask the fact that I was dealing with like some really deep, like, childhood pain that I couldn't talk about. So additionally, my mom being a teen mom and her life ending short, she, you know, when you're a kid raising a kid, you're not the most mature, you're not the most emotionally intelligent. A lot of things happen. So, with that sort of dynamic going into them raising me, it was a challenge. So, to have someone like me for me was huge. It felt validating, and that lifestyle and just really being accepted as myself and authentically as I could be, because I could really just be myself around David's family, and they loved me for me. I had formed a sense of family with our friends. I really felt like we were going to be in each other's lives forever, honestly. And it just so happened that that is what happened. About 9 months into mine and David's relationship, I found out that I was pregnant with Ethan. We were definitely scared, for sure. About 9 weeks into my pregnancy, his aunt and I were on our way to school, and something happened. I don't remember exactly what anymore because I did have a concussion. Um, we got into a car accident. We flipped 4 times, and the car hit a tree. It was so scary being pregnant, just finding out that I was pregnant like a week prior, and dealing with the just absolute backlash from family. I didn't want it to necessarily be public, but in the car accident, chaos. My soon to be grandpa in law drove up in a haze screaming, "That's my daughter," about his aunt, and then saying, "And she's pregnant," talking about me. So it was very widespread, very fast. The whole town knew before I got out of the hospital. Back then, we had the still kind of flip phones, sort of LG chocolate, the Juke. I'm trying to think what else. The Sidekick, I believe, was still a thing, and left of that, by the way. Or no, the LG MB. The LG MB3. God, Slade. Anywho, so I had no idea until I got home and logged on to the family computer to see that I was flooded with messages basically saying, like, "I heard you guys were in a car accident. Are you okay? Also heard you were pregnant." What? So, um, I, I then told everyone. And it was, it wasn't easy, of course. I am very grateful for the support that I did have through David's family. They really encouraged me. They knew that we could do it. And 3 months after Ethan was born, David and I got married. We were surrounded by our friends and family, and honestly, a lot of my family wanted us to get married before Ethan was born. They felt it sort of justified the means, you know what I mean? Like the weird Bible Belt culture of like having a baby out of wedlock is more of a sin than getting pregnant and then getting married and having the baby. So anywho, that was that was a time. I was freshly 18. We got our first apartment, and right when we got our first apartment, I found out I was pregnant with Ezra within a couple weeks of moving in. And holy crap. I remember going to his job, telling him, and we, it was wild. About halfway through my pregnancy, though, David was dabbling with addiction. and our funds were already diminished and they were further diminishing. I was in college. I had to leave in order to work and deal with what was going on at home. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily a choice I should have made, but I made it. I thought that at the time I needed to like prioritize and focus on my family and like deal with my marriage. Um, I wasn't dealing with it. I really didn't know how. And that's whenever we started to split and I moved back home with my grandma after we moved back in with his family. And in that time, I met Daniel. Daniel slid into my DMs and he was older. Definitely, I can't even describe to you the level of just, I don't want to say like innocence, but I had no idea what the world was when we met. Um, he flirted with me, the vibe, to Teddy Daddy, and just completely different than what I had known in my small town, I guess. So we we got together and David and I were just separated. We had not filed for divorce. I hadn't filed. I just filed for separation, but in the time I went to go file for a divorce, him and I were so mad at each other and so angry that he took off. And it did not help that in the time of all of that, I started dating. It was just, ugh, like, what? Girl, for real? So, anywho, with that, Daniel and I were together for about a year when I found out that I was pregnant with Walker. And I hired a private investigator to find David. Not that it should have been as hard, but honestly, there were so many things going on at the time. He was able to see his kids, but from a distance from me. But I personally would never serve anyone with paperwork during time that they're with their children, and I couldn't afford to have someone like follow him and stuff. It was just so much. So, but finally, when I got pregnant with Walker, things had shifted in our relationship and in his addiction to where um, he was allowed to see the kids, but I had stipulations and rules surrounding that. And in one of the visits of that, I had said, "Hey, I've been trying to talk to you and explain to you, I need you to sign this paperwork because if you don't, you're going to be responsible for paying child support for 3 kids." And he was like, "Okay, I'll stop being stubborn. Like, let me sign, sign, sign. Let me know." And I cackle at the fact that that was the deciding factor that finally pushed him to sign the paperwork. I was so irritated. And he was even madder at me because he was like, "What the heck, dude? I thought we were getting back together." Like, no, no. And after I had Walker, our relationship dynamic was better. We co-parented better. And then not long after Walker was born, unfortunately, mine and Daniel's relationship just kind of started falling apart. I wasn't sleeping. I went back to work dancing. I wanted to just, it was so much to juggle a co-parenting relationship, a nightlife that you were utilizing to make money, and being a mom and your marriage. I don't know what I don't know what was right in that situation, but it was just a lot to take on at the time. And once I I found out about like this higher paying call center. I applied and started working there full time because it was just about the same amount that I was making downtown. And then there were perks, of course, like insurance, a more stable schedule. Like, of course, like why would I not jump on that? So that's when I transitioned to that field, and Daniel and I split for the first time. Now, I moved back home with my grandma and worked overnights for a while. I also picked up a second job so that way I could pay off a bunch of debt that I acquired while Daniel and I were split. I also had a crazy dream that David died, and I called him angry, and I let him know that I can't allow for him to continue down the road that he was on and be a parent, that he had a choice to either get sober and be a dad or basically fuck off. Do you, but I'm I'm not gonna bring my kids to that. They don't deserve to see that. So then that Father's Day of that year, he showed up to my door and he said, "All right, I'll accept the help." Went down the road. He talked to his mom for, I think it was the first time in a while. And that's when we all, like, as a family, really pushed for him to be sober. Now, I can't say that I handled it all the best. I was angry at everything going on. Like, my relationship ended. Here you are just showing back up. Like, and I'm just supposed to be okay with it. Like, him working with his family for a while. That January, I got a house about 5-10 minutes down the road from both sets of grandparents, and it would be easier for me. I needed my own space. My grandma needed her house back. He basically infiltrated, like, almost as soon as I lived there. It was ugh, like, I was so irritated about it, but at the same time, again, very grateful for it. He helped me with all three kids if I needed to do something upstairs for the house, whatever. I would send the kids downstairs. They would all play, or he would take them outside and play with them. It was never a weird situation or anything that made it uncomfortable. Although we joked that on his birthday we would get remarried so that way he could have my insurance, because in his addiction, he unfortunately just, his teeth weren't the best, and I wanted for him to like have his smile back because I mean, he was a handsome guy. And here's where it gets a little heavier. Then in June, on the way home from Walmart, unfortunately, on our road home, he was involved in a car accident where he was in the back seat and he died on scene. It was one of the most devastating moments of my life. To grow up with someone who truly and authentically loved you and saw you, even if you had to get your braces off first, is something that I'll truly cherish forever. And I'll always preach to my kids, and a lot of people are, still angry about the things that he did in his addiction. I won't say he's perfect, and I definitely won't say I was either during that time. I handled things poorly, and I learned from that for sure. So after that, I had to plan a funeral with my best friend Lauren. I talked about that more in detail on my previous podcast, everything she did for me, and I'll always be forever grateful for that and for that time because it was absolute divine appointment. If it was not for her, things wouldn't have happened. Once the funeral was over and I had to adjust to what my new life was, that's whenever Daniel and I reconnected, and I have to admit, I absolutely clung to any sense of a familiar old life. Ugh. That was a mistake on my end because that was a poor decision on my part because I was unhealed from our previous relationship, as was he, and we jumped heavy back into it as if none of that happened until old wounds were reopened, and unfortunately, well, old wounds were opened that ultimately led to us splitting up again. Only this time it was a much longer, drawn out legal process that cost me so much money. And I hate that. Still think about how much that cost. But in that time, after Daniel and I had split up, I will admit I waited a while. But I had always had a friend, the mystery man. He had been in my life, actually, all my life. We went to kindergarten in the same school. We actually had a not too far from each other, like, childhood home on Substation Road. It's weird how the red line theory had worked in this particular situation. Um, Also, he was in our friend group growing up. We were close in that regard always, but never crossed a line as kids. Now, I will say before I met David, I definitely tried to holler at him, but there was a miscommunication, which doesn't sound unfamiliar in our dynamic. And it just didn't happen. We crossed paths a couple times here and there, but never really connecting. What ended up sort of sparking, I guess. Oh, I can't leave this out. He was there when I had Ethan. He was there when I brought Ezra home, but when I had Walker, or really when I moved and David and I split, we lost touch. Social media wasn't really a thing, but I would bump into his family. I'd always ask about him and see how he was doing. A few years back, he came up as a suggested friend, I think, or I added him, he added me, I don't know. Who knows? But anywho, what ended up sparking even us talking as friends was I found an old yearbook, and I couldn't believe that I saw his picture, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. So I sent it to him, and we just reconnected as friends. We talked. It wasn't for about 3 or 4 months, like, even as friends, that I had shared that Daniel and I struggled and weren't doing well. This was right when him and I were figuring out where he was gonna live, and I was like, what the heck? We were fighting all the time. It just wasn't good. I didn't want to repeat the patterns that we had had before and show the kids that type of relationship. I can't say that they weren't all on his end or all on mine. Definitely a lot of equal fault when it came to maturity. Our, I guess, like, friendship had stayed platonic until Daniel moved out. Um, or around that time that he moved out, I I don't remember the exact timing that Daniel moved out, but I definitely remember Daniel moved out like June, early June, and the few weeks or leading up, not leading up, I don't even know. I don't want to sound weird because it was never it just wait. I'll tell you exactly what I did. Don't worry. I still have it. I still have the message. I can't believe it that I even do. Like but when Daniel moved out, it was quiet in the house. The kids were at summer camp and we were just having a normal conversation like we always did, and I just said I want for us to hang out in a not friendly way. And I'm sure it was a shock, and I had just said like I didn't want it to ruin our friendship, but it had been 84 years. And also I didn't trust everyone, and the way that it was again nice and validating to have a relationship with someone who had seen every part of you from childhood into adulthood, from married to widowed to all of these things, and it felt as if they liked you. It felt as if they enjoyed your company, that they genuinely cared for you. That is a validating experience. Reached out, did that, and it was scary. I drove over there and I was so nervous. I don't know if I ate. I don't even know if I slept, honestly, because I was so nervous. It's weird. Like, it's so weird. And the magic happens, and I go home and I am like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, not in a bad way, but I thought, like, I just ruined everything because I love him. Like, why did I do this? Like, what did I do? I even called him. I'm almost 1,000% sure. I called him and I was like, hey, I love you. So I don't know what you want to do about that, but like we got to figure this out. And I'm pretty sure I know his response. He was so kind and he laughed, and he was like, well, I love you. I always have. Like, don't be a weirdo. Everything's fine. And I was just like, oh, thank God. Like, what the? Ooh, thank you, Jesus. Like, everything's chill. Everything's cool. Got this. And honestly, like, it was probably the healthiest relationship I think that I'd ever been in until just one day it wasn't. I don't know what happened. I don't necessarily know the switch or what I did or what he decided, but it was like we woke up in the Tower of Babel and we were just building and building, but nothing was happening because we weren't communicating. No matter what, it felt like no matter what I said, it was being taken as if I was wanting more, and then it felt as if no matter what I wanted, the goalpost was being moved. And it each time we would try to express this, I think, to each other, we both received it something different. And perception is reality. So the week of, I think it was like spring break, the like after seeing each other for a while, and I just remember being overwhelmed and crying about how overwhelmed I was, that no one could see how full my plate was, and I just needed someone to like prioritize me or think about me and help this not be so heavy. And it ended up becoming that I needed something. I didn't know how to communicate it, to be honest. But if you ask me a question or to be included, like, I'm gonna do my part to include you in it and in my expression. When I'm pretty sure he asked, like, is this about me? I was like, no, but I mean, it would be nice to have, because I felt like if I did that, then to have some, like, hey, like, here we are, and, here's what I need. Um, it wasn't, it wasn't that. It did not go that way. And we broke up. I was like, there's no way this is real. Like, there's no way this is happening. And I can't explain what it's like to have that immediate cutoff when your perception is that all you were doing was asking for what you needed, or really, like, and that was the punishment. And that was, now I understand that when someone does that, they don't want to do it, so that's okay. But it didn't seem right. Like, I just couldn't put my finger on it. It didn't seem right. Something was wrong. And I was stuck trying to figure it out for what felt like years. But I started just focusing on myself, reevaluating my business plan. Who do I want to be when I grow up? And I remember getting a DM from someone, and they had asked me to hang out. I was really confused because I had never really hung out with this person. They had asked and before, but we had never crossed paths, just him and I. Additionally, I'm really big on, if I know that you have been with someone that I know, I don't like to go and be with that person. It's like it feels like I'm sleeping with a relative. And I don't know. Like, that's just me. That's just me. I know that's weird, super weird, but I just don't think that that's right. I don't know. Unless there's, like, other dynamics and situations, whatever the case is, like, I've crossed paths with someone and been like, oh no, and they were like, oh no, this is what I wanted for you guys. Like, I think you'd be chill together. I was like, oh, okay. Which, again, still weird, but moving on. So, that was never my intention because of that. So, whenever they asked to hang out, they made it seem as if it was a gathering of more than four, and it wasn't. Once they made a heavily aggressive move, I went to leave, and they followed me out to my car and then continued to make moves. And I remember thinking, I have to get this over with because I want to go home so bad and just be home. It went from that to very aggressive to an attack. I was choked. Hair was, like, ripped out of my head, like, into my back seat. And I remember I just got a haircut and I was so excited that I, like, finally, like, looked super cute. Like, after feeling like trash, like, I finally got to look cute. And, something hit me that I didn't know if I was gonna leave, or I didn't know, I just didn't know what was gonna happen, and I knew that this couldn't be my last moments after everything that I've been through, and that I didn't want my kids to find me like that, or to see me on the news or in the paper or whatever it was, and that wasn't gonna be my story. And I remember literally, like, snatching away from him and kicking and screaming and fighting and just being like, I'm ready to leave, and yelling that, yeah, I like you. It was fine. Whatever. I want to go home. And getting my stuff and going home and calling Daniel because I didn't know who to call. I I had reached out to the mystery man previously in this time, and there was not a response. So for me, I'm not going to further traumatize someone who doesn't want to talk to me, who doesn't want to be around me. And Daniel and I had hung out, not in that way, but we had been friendly in that time. And like, after, just because, I'm not gonna lie, I called him during my breakup and just sobbed on the phone and was like, oh my god, like, this sucks so bad, and blah, 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 because I didn't want to bother anyone. I didn't feel like I really had anyone, but anywho, I called Daniel and I just screamed. I don't want to talk too much further about what happened next, but it was a process. I chose not to press charges because, and I know a lot of people will wonder why, so I'm gonna tell you now to get this out of the way, move on, and understand that this is difficult. It was a difficult decision. I made a decision not to press charges because I am a small business owner in a small town, a multi small business owner. And with that, unfortunately, my town, no matter the situation, does take up for an abuser. They just do. The community, I have seen the backlash to sexual assault victims and what they do when they hold people accountable. And then, if justice is not served in the capacity that people feel is necessary, there is such a outcry or severe disconnect from reality. I don't I don't want to participate in it. I can't participate in it, and I won't. Um, for me, that is when a lot of healing, and for like, as weird as it may sound, like a lot of healing began for me, and I really started to focus on my mental health and take note of my relationships, and also understanding statistically that if you are assaulted in childhood, you are more likely to be assaulted in adulthood. There is nothing wrong with you. You did not do anything wrong. You do not attract these kinds of people. Those people look for victims. After after that, I took a lot of time to heal, and I met some people who wanted to date, but I really wasn't ready to be transparent. I did not want to ever have someone know the deepest parts of me, and in the end up rejecting me because it hurts. It really hurts. So it was like a sense of vulnerability that I just knew I wasn't ready for. Into the next year, so now we're in the current year. Earlier in the year, I had been having these dreams about the mystery man, and I started like reaching out to my therapist because I was like, I'm literally delusional. Like, what is wrong with me? And it was hard because I just wanted to move forward. And then a friend of mine called me and said, I had the craziest dream that we were looking for something in your house. And we literally turned the house upside down, but we found it in your corner of your bedroom. Now, in reality, where that corner was, it was a lamp that the mystery man got me, and a couple other knickknacks. But in her dream, it was a tube of red lipstick and a lighter. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but whenever David passed away, there was a few things that was found on him. He took my debit card and he bought himself a brand new pack of cigarettes and a lighter. Um, and in her dream, it was the lighter and a tube of red lipstick, which red lipstick my mom used to wear all the time, and that was one of the things that they found on her when she passed away. And I thought that was really weird. So, in reality, in the real world, awake, I guess, I go over there to see what's there, and it's a sticky note that had like a high school name on it. Something that the mystery man and I shared in common is that we had both lost a parent, and he did not have a lot of pictures that I guess he wanted. And we had talked about that, and I made a promise that I would look for specifically the yearbook that of the high school that his dad went to, because he knew that there were going to be like pictures of him in there. And so when I saw the name of that high school, I thought that was really odd because like I tried my best not to think about that and move on, I guess I should say. So I then logged back onto my laptop, not thinking really anything of it, and then I got an email that my photos were ready from schoolmates, and I thought that's weird. And then I remembered, oh, like I'm in college, so it's probably just something for school because I'm about to graduate. And it actually turned out to be his dad's senior yearbook with the photos inside. I did not know what to do because it felt like a really cruel joke that, like, why, why do this again? So, I debated on whether or not I was going to send them, and then just ultimately decided to send them over because if it were my mom, I would want that. And I made a promise. I'm never one to break a promise. Like, pinky promise. I don't care. I'll make a grown man pinky promise me. So then when I reached out, there was a response, and I did not anticipate one, expect one. I especially because I had reached out before and got nothing, so I didn't want to get my feelings hurt. I just wanted to move this information over and continue healing. Now, what happened next? We didn't heal. I didn't heal. Um, I was so thankful and grateful, and I did apologize for my part in the relationship because, I'd had someone reach out to me and express that there was malice feelings for not being able to be there for them because of what I had on my plate. And, not being able to have room to hear their needs. And so I made sure to acknowledge it. To me, that was never my intention. And, I felt bad. Ah, I'm so hoarse. Oh my God. So, after talking and, saying that, they felt, I guess, the same way. They apologized. I asked them if we could meet up and talk because I felt like that was important, and maybe get closure, reopen, whatever needed to happen. I wanted to have direction in that moment. So I invited him over. We talked. I told him so much about how I felt and how lost I felt for a long time, but it didn't make sense how this could happen and that we could be so close in distance but so far away. Like it it just didn't make sense for that to be our story or to continue that way. And he did say that he wasn't necessarily sure that he wanted to have a relationship with me, but that he wanted me to that he wanted us to be in each other's lives because we always had, but we just weren't sure at what capacity. And I definitely respected it and understood it because it is scary. And were we ready for a relationship? But then the actions didn't match. We were acting as if we were in a relationship, continuing the hanging out, him coming back around my kids, which I remember even saying, like, hey, like, they're gonna be here, and him being like, yeah, I know, of course, duh, like, I know you, I know them. And in my mind, I was just like, I just don't want them to get hurt again, for, unfortunately, them to get hurt again. The night of Ethan's 8th grade formal, I broke my wrist the day before, and he came over to help me with orders, but he wasn't feeling well. He fell asleep, and I understood that, so I'm not going to push someone and be like, oh my God, get up, help me. But I just kept doing my orders, and I was like, hey, I knew you needed the sleep, like, no big deal. So I felt something was off, and I was like, hey, so here's what I'm going to do, and, I'll talk to you soon, and we'll meet back up, because we hung out every Saturday. And it was like, sure, I'll call. It's like, okay. Just, it was just odd. And then I did not hear from him for the rest of the evening until the next day. And just, hey, good morning. Like nothing happened. As if that wasn't a big moment for Ethan, number one, to myself as a parent, seeing him go do that and not having anyone to share it with. Like, it is hard to do these things by myself, and I did express that because I wish his dad was here, but it is what it is. So I was confused, and I was like, what happened? Like, what? Like, what? Of course, in true fashion of every great love story, the response wasn't up to par. um, Neither, I can't express to you the words, because it was like I wasn't being spoken to like a friend. Even I was being spoken to as if I were a call center nuisance. Like, how dare I question any of it? So I took it for what it was and realized that obviously, like, we're just not going to work out. He doesn't want to be with me. He doesn't like me. And moved on. Started just living life. Now, like, I can't say that, like, I wasn't upset. Of course I was upset, but in the end, like, I realized there was nothing I was going to do, no matter how much I did, no matter what I did. It just wasn't me. It just wasn't going to be me. I wasn't liked anymore. I don't know how else to explain it, what it was, but I was just like, I have to just, like, move forward. So I did everything that I could to move forward personally, spiritually, and just stayed to myself. A couple months later, he did reach out and apologized. And for me, I thought, oh, okay. And he had expressed some other things that or his journey to express. But to me, I thought that that meant a little bit more, only to not hear from him. I reached out to just say that, I want what's best for you, even if it's not me, but I wish it was, I wish things were different, to get a smiley face or a heart, I think. I don't know anymore. Because I had to just disconnect myself. I then found myself waiting by the phone for another month. Like, okay, if you apologized and, you know, like, what's next? Like, what's gonna happen next? To get nothing. And finally, I decided that at the end of August, I was like, yeah, fuck that. Like, this is not fair. Like, I did not do anything wrong. So for you to reopen this for me, like, it pissed me off. So I reached out and I was like, I don't think it's fair that I keep being left on red after being vulnerable and, like, constantly just taking shit and then have to see you support everybody else. Like, I know your phone works, dude. It's not fair. Like, I thought at some point you would have been my friend. Instead, you just left me on red. And the response was to turn red receipts off. I guess to go lower, I guess to not say that this is what it is. I didn't want to be with you. I just wanted closure to move on, or I did want to be with you. Whatever it was, that was just him saying no. And I was like, all right, there's nothing more I can do. I mean, he didn't even wish me happy birthday. So for me, like, if he wanted to, he would, and he didn't. The end. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't think I ever will. It's a mystery to me, and I guess that's one of the ways to even bring it back around, that the mystery man will, all that will be a mystery to me forever. I don't get it. It wouldn't be me. I would never want to hurt somebody that I cared about. And, it amazes me that a 15-minute drive and a 30-minute conversation could have changed everything. But that's not what they wanted, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. In the end, I just have to focus on my actions and who I can be and how I can be better, and stop internalizing it, because I'm never going to be too much for the right person, and somebody that's for me is going to tell me what I need and going to tell me what they want so I can be a provider to that. It is a give and take, and someone that can't do that is not it's someone who doesn't want to do that isn't someone who's going to want to be with me, because I provide and require that at the end of the day. And you will never be too much for the right person. You can never say the wrong thing to the right person. And I will fully back that 1000%. Regardless. So what am I doing now? Now I'm flipping houses. I am doing this podcast. I'm baking. I took us off to be sane. Staying busy while I work on myself. Like, that's the lesson, really. Just keep working on you, and it gets better. Like, I know it's crazy to even think, like, really it gets better, but I know that genuine love exists because I have it and I give it. And if you're struggling to find your person in this world, don't worry, like, you're gonna find someone. And regardless of how long it takes, The more you work on yourself, the less you're going to want people to touch that work of art, and you're going to be more selective and intuitive of who you allow to the gallery. So, just to wrap this up, and thank you for listening for this long. I know some of you came for specific stories, some of you came with a little bit of anxiety and anticipation, and some of you just came for the tea and to talk about it with your friends. And hey, I'm here for it. So don't worry. I love it, needed it, and if you haven't already, please follow us on Facebook and like us on Instagram. Now, don't forget, too, we are streaming every Monday. Before I close out, we are going to go through our mom mantra of the week, and that is I don't have to have it all. I just have to love them well. And that's like, I don't have to do everything. Like, I want to be a cookie cutter mom so bad, and I try and then fall short the other 6 days. Like, I just have to keep loving them and showing up for them in ways that are essential. My tip of the week is definitely a 10-minute tidy. Set a timer 10 minutes after everybody's asleep. Get everything done what you can, and then let the rest go. You're going to wake up to feeling like way less overwhelmed. I have fallen short of doing that for a while now. I have to get back into that. Today has been my queen day, tour day, so I can get back to everything else that I have to do, need to do, want to do. So keep it up. Lastly, I know a few of you did ask me about something that kind of crazy happened to me. Someone signed me up for Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is the second time that they've done it. And I posted a story because, like, I wanted to be, like, I wanted to be funny, but also to not have them come back to my house. But I read that, like, I read the book. The first time they came around, low key, I was like, what is this? And then I read it and I was like, oh no. So the first question, and I said I couldn't post these because, like, a lot of people aren't going to understand them. And with that, like, ask them. The Watchtower originally taught that the generation of 1914 wouldn't pass away before Armageddon, but since over a century has passed, how do they explain that they all died? That was a failed prophecy. That challenges, like, the accuracy and its continuous, like, shifting perspectives or interpretations that are retaught over and over again. The second question is, if the Bible says to test all things and hold them fast to what is good, which is first, I can't ever say these, I'm so sorry. First Colossians 5:21. Then why are Jehovah's Witnesses encouraged from reading material that questions the Watchtower or former members' experiences? It's intentional to make them see that they do not want for you to have personal discernment, and the organization does try to have informational control. Now, this last one, in the New World Translation, John 11 says, the Word was a God. But if Jehovah says in Isaiah 43:10 that before me there was no God formed, and neither shall there be one after me, then how can there even be a God? This highlights, like, its vast inconsistency because they denounce the Holy Trinity. So, for those who like that kind of stuff, I love religious studies. The reason why I couldn't ask these on a public platform is because it is typically followed up with, where did you get that information from? Or how did you know this? And it sparks a bit of a taboo debate that is unnecessary. I personally do not believe that a religion formed in control or that thrives in control without exploration is not a good thing. It's a cult, and that's not cool. you should have a thirst for knowledge and exploration no matter where you are, even if that's in religion and in life. Being being given the opportunity to get to explore and create something every single day, we are so blessed. So beyond blessed. And I don't care if that's weird. Again, I want to thank you guys all for coming to listen and grow with me. And I can't wait to tell you more about what's going on next week. If you haven't, one last time, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and stream wherever you get your podcast. You can also turn on like the subscribers. So I think that's cute. And again, have a great week. Go kick the rest of the month. A double S.